Most people think faith means working harder, praying louder, and worrying longer. But what if I told you that the real instruction from heaven right now is not push, it's relax? Because when God makes a promise, he doesn't need your stress to fulfill it. He needs your alignment. You see, panic doesn't speed up provision, it slows it down. Striving doesn't attract blessings, it repels them. God operates by systems, not emotions. And once you're in the system, the outcome is inevitable. That's why the promise isn't waiting on you. You're waiting on the promise to arrive at the appointed time. And here's the truth most people miss. What God promised you is already in motion. It's not lost, it's not late, it's not denied, it's looking for you in faith, in obedience, and in rest. So relax. Heaven hasn't forgotten your address. Most people think anxiety is just a normal response to pressure, but anxiety is actually information. It's a signal. It's your soul telling you that you're trying to carry something you were never designed to carry. When God gives a promise, he doesn't hand you the weight of it. He hands you the assurance of it. The weight was never yours. The responsibility was never yours. Your job was never to make it happen. Your job was to stay positioned for it to happen. That's why panic is so dangerous. Panic pulls you out of position. Panic makes you grab for control. Panic convinces you that if you don't force the outcome, nothing will move. But God never asked you to force what he already fixed. When you start striving, you're not showing commitment. You're revealing mistrust. You're saying, God, I believe you, but just in case you don't come through, let me help you. And heaven doesn't respond to help. Heaven responds to alignment. Position is everything. Think about it. Rain falls, but only containers positioned under the open sky get filled. The promise is released, but only those who remain in faith receive it. When you step out of alignment and step into anxiety, you move yourself out from under the flow. That's why rest is so powerful. Rest keeps you in place. Rest says, I'm not leaving my assignment just because it feels uncomfortable. Rest says, I trust the process even when I don't see progress. You don't get blessed by being busy, you get blessed by being obedient. Activity is not the same as productivity. Many people are exhausted, not because they're doing too much, but because they're doing what God never told them to do. Anxiety is often the cost of unauthorized labor. You took on a role God never assigned, and now you're tired from trying to play provider, protector, and planner all at once. Here's the truth. If God promised it, he already accounted for the timing, the resistance, the delay, and the opposition. Nothing catches him off guard. The promise didn't come with fine print that said, unless things get difficult. The promise wasn't issued with a disclaimer that said, subject to cancellation if you make a mistake. The promise was settled before the challenge ever showed up. That's why you can relax. Not because the situation is easy, but because the outcome is secure. Faith isn't pretending there's no pressure. Faith is knowing pressure doesn't get the final say. Anxiety says, what if it doesn't work? Faith says, even if it takes longer, it's still working. Anxiety focuses on what's missing. Faith focuses on what was spoken. And let me say this clearly. Staying positioned doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right thing without desperation. It means showing up without fear. It means working without worshiping the work. It means trusting God's system more than your effort. When you're positioned, you move with peace. You decide with clarity. You wait without frustration. And that's how you know you're aligned. Some of you don't need a new strategy. You need a new posture. You don't need to hustle harder. You need to sit deeper in trust, because the moment you stop panicking is the moment you start hearing, and the moment you start hearing is the moment you stop forcing. God's promises are not activated by stress. They're activated by faith expressed through obedience. So if heaven is quiet right now, it's not because nothing is happening. It's because everything is already moving. Stay positioned, stay faithful, stay at rest. Because what God promised you doesn't need your anxiety to find you. It only needs you to remain where faith placed you. Most people believe pressure produces provision. They think if they push harder, stay up later, worry longer, and strain more intensely, results will finally show up. But pressure has never been the currency of heaven. God doesn't respond to urgency, he responds to order. Provision doesn't move because you're desperate. It moves because you're disciplined. It moves because you understand the principles that govern increase. Everything God does operates within a system. Seasons follow order. Harvest follows planting. Increase follows stewardship. And once you understand the system, you stop trying to manipulate outcomes with emotion. Pressure is emotional energy. Principle is spiritual law. Emotional energy burns you out. Spiritual law carries you forward. That's why people who live by pressure are constantly tired, while people who live by principle move with peace. Pressure says, I need this now, or I won't be okay. Principle says, I'm okay because I'm aligned. Pressure demands immediate results. Principle principle trusts process. When you rush the system, you don't speed it up. You step out of it. And when you step out of God's system, you may get activity, but you lose authority. You may get movement, but you lose momentum. God's provision is predictable, not random. It shows up when the conditions are right. A farmer doesn't shout at the soil to make it grow faster. He doesn't threaten the seed. He doesn't panic when nothing appears above ground. He understands timing. He understands process. He understands that growth is happening even when it's invisible. And that understanding gives him peace. Pressure comes from trying to control what you were called to steward. You don't control outcomes. You steward inputs. You steward your obedience. You steward your integrity. You steward your consistency. God handles the multiplication. When you confuse your role with God's role, pressure enters. But when you stay in your lane, peace follows. Here's what many people don't realize. Pressure actually repels provision. It causes you to make rushed decisions, compromise values, and ignore wisdom. Pressure makes you skip steps, and skipped steps always create delayed results. God's system doesn't reward speed. It rewards accuracy. It rewards faithfulness. It rewards alignment. Principle doesn't require motivation. It works whether you feel inspired or not. Gravity doesn't check your emotions before it functions. In the same way, God's laws operate regardless of how intense your situation feels. When you're positioned in the principle, the promise will find you, not because you chased it, but because the system carried it to you. That's why rest is not laziness. Rest is confidence in the system. Rest says, I've done what I was instructed to do, and now I trust the process to do what it was designed to do. Rest removes anxiety because anxiety is rooted in uncertainty, and principle removes uncertainty. When you know the system works, you don't panic, you participate. Some of you have been pressuring doors that were never meant to open because you thought effort was the key, but effort without alignment is exhaustion. You don't need more force, you need more understanding. The moment you understand how God's system works, striving loses its appeal. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop forcing and start flowing. And when you flow, provision comes naturally, opportunities recognize you, resources locate you, favor finds you. Not because you begged for it, but because you positioned yourself where it belongs. Pressure may get attention, but principle produces results. So take the pressure off, stay in the system, do what you're assigned to do, and trust the structure God has already established. Because when you're aligned with principle, provision doesn't need to be pushed. It shows up right on time. Most people misunderstand rest. They think rest means stopping, slowing down, or stepping away from responsibility. But real rest isn't inactivity. It's confidence. It's the quiet assurance that even while you're moving, the outcome is already secured. Rest is not the absence of effort. It's the absence of fear inside the effort. You can be fully engaged and still be at rest when you know you're not the one carrying the result. Rest is trust in motion. It's waking up, doing what you've been instructed to do, and refusing to let anxiety dictate your pace or your decisions. When you're truly at rest, you don't rush conversations, you don't force opportunities, and you don't overreact to delays. You move with clarity because you're not trying to outrun uncertainty. You've already settled it in faith. When God rested after creation, it wasn't because he was tired, it was because the work was complete. Rest is a declaration of completion. When you choose rest, you're not saying nothing needs to be done. You're saying what needs to be done has already been defined. Rest keeps you focused on obedience rather than outcomes. Anxiety obsesses over results. Rest commits to process. Many people exhaust themselves not because the task is heavy, but because their mind is. They replay scenarios, anticipate worst-case outcomes, and try to solve tomorrow with today's strength. That's not diligence. That's distrust. Rest releases you from the burden of mental overwork. It allows you to concentrate on what's in front of you without carrying what's not assigned to you yet. Rest also sharpens your discernment. When you're anxious, every opportunity looks urgent. When you're at rest, you can tell the difference between a divine assignment and a distraction. You don't feel pressured to say yes to everything because you trust that what's meant for you won't bypass you. Rest gives you the patience to wait and the wisdom to move at the right time. There's a rhythm to how God works, and rest keeps you in sync with that rhythm. When you get ahead of the rhythm, you burn out. When you fall behind it, you become frustrated. But when you move in rest, your pace matches purpose. You're not late and you're not early. You're aligned. That alignment creates momentum without stress. Rest is also how strength is renewed. Anxiety drains energy. Rest multiplies it. That's why people who trust deeply often seem unbothered by pressure. They understand that panic never produces power. Strength comes from knowing you're supported, not from trying to prove you can handle everything alone. Some of you have been working faithfully, but you've been working tense. You've been obedient but exhausted. That's not because you're doing the wrong thing. It's because you're doing the right thing with the wrong posture. Rest doesn't remove responsibility, it removes resistance. It allows you to carry your assignment without fighting the process. And here's the key. Rest doesn't delay manifestation, it accelerates it. When you stop interfering with fear, clarity increases. When clarity increases, decisions improve. When decisions improve, progress becomes inevitable. Rest clears the noise so you can hear instruction, and instruction always leads to increase. You don't have to strive to prove your faith. Faith proves itself when you can remain calm while everything is still unfolding. Rest says, I trust the timing even when I don't like the waiting. And that kind of trust is powerful because it keeps you steady until the promise fully materializes. So keep moving, but move from rest. Keep working, but work without worry. Keep believing, but believe without pressure. Because when trust is in motion, fear has nowhere to stand. A lot of people live with the quiet fear that somehow what's meant for them might slip past them. They worry they'll miss the right moment, meet the right person too late, make the wrong decision, or take a detour that permanently disqualifies them. But what's assigned to you operates under a different set of rules. It's not fragile, it's not easily lost, and it's not dependent on perfect performance. When something is truly promised, it doesn't wander, it waits, and when the time is right, it connects. Nothing that carries your name on it can be stolen by delay. Delay doesn't mean denial, it means development. While you think nothing is happening, alignment is taking place, strength is being built, character is being refined, capacity is being expanded. If the promise arrived before you were ready to hold it, it wouldn't bless you, it would burden you. That's why timing is an act of mercy, not punishment. Detours don't disqualify you either. They educate you. Every step you've taken, even the ones you regret, added information you needed. Wisdom doesn't come from never making mistakes. It comes from learning how to recover with humility and faith. If the promise depended on perfection, no one would ever receive it. But promises are upheld by grace, not flawlessness. You need to understand this. What's assigned to you has intelligence. It knows how to locate you. It adjusts for your pace without losing its purpose. You don't have to chase it down or outrun anyone else to get it. Competition is an illusion when assignment is real. There is no one you need to beat, copy, or outshine to receive what was specifically designed for you. That's why comparison is so dangerous. The moment you measure your journey against someone else's timeline, you introduce frustration into a process that was meant to produce peace. Their pace has nothing to do with your purpose. Their outcome doesn't reduce your supply. When you stay focused on your lane, you stay connected to your assignment. Fear tells you that one wrong move will ruin everything. Faith reminds you that the promise is stronger than your missteps. You didn't disqualify yourself when you failed. You didn't lose your place when you stumbled. You didn't fall out of favor because you needed time to grow. What's assigned to you accounts for your humanity. This is why rest is possible even in uncertainty. You can move forward without panic because you know the destination hasn't changed. You can take your time without anxiety because you're not racing against loss. When the promise is real, it waits for readiness, not speed. Some of you have been blaming yourselves for delays that were actually protection. You thought you were behind, but you were being preserved. You thought you missed your moment, but your moment was being prepared. Nothing about your journey is wasted when it's surrendered. Every season had a purpose, even the confusing ones. And here's the part that changes everything. If it's truly assigned to you, it cannot go to someone else. No one can accidentally take your place. No one can receive your portion. No one can step into your assignment and make it theirs. What's yours responds to your presence. It recognizes your obedience. It aligns with your identity. So let go of the fear of missing out. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not disqualified. Stay faithful where you are. Stay consistent with what you've been given and trust that what's meant for you is moving toward you with perfect accuracy, right on time. Many people think that success is about pursuit, that if they just run faster, push harder, or chase longer, the things they want will eventually come to them. That's why so many are exhausted, frustrated, and disillusioned. Striving seems natural, but striving without alignment is actually counterproductive. The truth is, you don't pursue promises. The promises pursue you. Once you understand this principle, it changes everything about how you live, how you act, and how you respond to life. When God makes a promise, it carries a pull that is invisible to the eye, but undeniable in effect. It is like a magnet calibrated specifically for you. It doesn't require screaming, begging, or forcing. It is designed to find its way to the one it belongs to. Your job isn't to chase it like a dog chasing a stick. Your job is to position yourself correctly so that it can reach you without obstruction. Faithful positioning allows the promise to move without resistance. Striving blocks it, surrender unlocks it. Striving implies fear. It implies that the promise might be lost if you don't act. But when you live in alignment with the principles God has laid down, you begin to see that the promise cannot miss you. Striving is rooted in doubt, while faith is rooted in certainty. Striving exhausts, faith energizes. When you try to force what is already on its way, you actually create obstacles for yourself. You overcomplicate things, make poor decisions, and miss the subtleties of opportunity that are naturally moving in your direction. When you adopt the posture of allowing rather than pursuing, doors begin to open that you never expected. People come into your life at just the right moment. Resources appear in ways you could not have anticipated. Favor begins to find you instead of you hunting for it. This is the principle of divine attraction. The promise is not passive, it is active. It is moving toward you even when you are still, provided that stillness is rooted in faith. Many people confuse action with effectiveness. Just because you are moving doesn't mean the promise is moving toward you. You can run frantically and still miss it because your energy is misaligned. But when your actions are purposeful and consistent with the system God has established, the promise begins to chase you. Obedience becomes a beacon. Integrity becomes a magnet. Faithfulness creates pathways that the promise must travel to reach you. This doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you do what is assigned, what is right, and what is strategic. Without desperation, you maintain your standards, your discipline, your habits, and your focus, but you stop trying to wrestle control over the outcome. The moment you stop trying to manipulate the promise is the moment the promise can work unhindered. Striving creates noise that interferes with divine movement. Surrender creates clarity that invites it. It is also important to recognize that timing is critical. The promise pursues those who are ready to receive it. Your role is to grow into the capacity to handle what is on the way. Many people chase prematurely and fail because they are not prepared to steward what they desire. The pursuit of the promise out of fear only leads to disappointment. Alignment and preparation, however, position you perfectly to let the promise find you effortlessly. When you understand that promises pursue obedience rather than desperation, it transforms your perspective on patience, discipline, and strategy. You no longer measure success by speed or by what others are doing. You measure it by your alignment, your consistency, and your faith. The promise will not bypass you because it is already programmed to recognize your position and respond accordingly. You become a receiver, not a chaser, and the energy that was wasted on anxiety and frantic effort is now invested in readiness and wisdom. So stop the chase, stop forcing outcomes, stop trying to bend circumstances to your will. Focus instead on doing what is right, what is consistent, and what builds capacity. Trust that the promises made to you are not inert. They are alive, moving, and actively seeking the one they were meant for. When you live in alignment, the promise pursues you, and you will realize that what you once thought required struggle now arrives with ease. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that success is purely a result of effort, that if they work hard enough, pray long enough, and push relentlessly, they can force outcomes into existence. That's not how God's system operates. Striving without alignment is like rowing a boat against the current. You're expending energy, creating tension, and yet going nowhere. The moment you realize that faith, consistency, and alignment, not frantic effort, are what unlock results, your whole approach to life changes. Faithful obedience produces authority. When you live consistently within God's principles, you create a resonance that attracts what is already yours. Striving attempts to manufacture success outside of that resonance. It's the equivalent of trying to light a fire by blowing on embers that have yet to ignite. You can puff all you want, but until the spark meets the right conditions, no flame will catch. Your obedience, your positioning, your discipline, these are the spark. Your effort alone without alignment is just wind. The world tells you to chase, to hustle, to work harder, but in the divine economy, this is a misunderstanding of how increase flows. Increase does not come to desperation. Favor does not follow fear. Opportunity does not respond to panic. They follow principle, order, and readiness. You cannot outwork a system that is designed to move with precision and intelligence. You can only position yourself within that system and allow it to carry you. Consistency is critical. Many people wait for opportunity to knock while they operate in bursts of frantic activity. They work sporadically, push inconsistently, and then wonder why results are uneven. But what the system requires is steady alignment. Small, consistent, and faithful actions create pathways for what is meant for you to arrive. The promise does not chase chaos. It pursues readiness. When you are reliable in the little things, the big things begin to move toward you naturally. Patience is not passive. Waiting does not mean doing nothing. Waiting means trusting the timing of the system while remaining active in your assigned responsibilities. Many fail because they confuse waiting with inactivity and obedience with passivity. True waiting is active trust. It's performing what you are called to do while refusing to manipulate or force what is not yet yours. Patience aligned with action creates a magnetic force that draws the promise into your life effortlessly. Fear is a signal that you are attempting to operate outside of your position. It tells you that you are attempting to chase what should be attracted. Striving breeds fear, but faith breeds confidence. When you realize that the promise will pursue you and that timing is in God's hands, you begin to move with peace instead of panic. You begin to act with wisdom instead of haste. You begin to understand that increase is not a product of pushing. It is a product of alignment. Preparation is also essential. The promise cannot fully manifest if you are not ready to steward it. Many people chase rewards prematurely and end up overwhelmed or unprepared for what arrives. The system is intelligent. It will respond to your readiness, not your desperation. Alignment is the condition under which the promise operates most effectively. When you prepare yourself spiritually, mentally, and strategically, you create a receptacle that the promise naturally fills. Your role is always to position, prepare, and obey. The promise's role is to find you. You do not have to run after it, push it, or wrestle it into submission. You only need to remain faithful where you are, maintain your integrity, and ensure your actions align with the principles of the system. This is how multiplication occurs. This is how favor finds you. This is how blessings show up seemingly effortlessly. When you live in this way, you release the tension of fear, desperation, and impatience. You move with confidence, knowing that nothing can take what is assigned to you away. Striving will never secure the promise. Alignment will. Chasing will never create increase. Preparation will. Panic will never attract blessing. Faith will. The moment you embrace that principle, life begins to operate differently. You begin to see that what you once thought required struggle now comes with ease, because the system is designed to find those who are ready and faithful. So stop chasing, stop forcing, stop trying to manufacture what is already on its way. Focus on alignment, consistency, preparation, and faith, and watch as the promises designed for you find you in perfect timing.